Let's talk about fats. Now, when you hear that word, you probably think of food, maybe energy. But in biology, fats, or, to be more accurate, lipids, are this incredibly diverse and absolutely essential group of molecules. They don't just store energy. They're the architects of our cells, they're messengers in our bodies. So today, we're going to explore how these amazing structures get built, one molecular block at a time.
So yeah, we hear about fats all the time. Saturated, unsaturated, but what are they really? What do they actually look like down at the molecular level? To get it, we need to start with their most basic component. We're going to peel back the layers and see the architecture that makes everything from the butter on your toast to your own cell membranes possible.
And that entire journey starts right here, with the fatty acid. Seriously, these things are the fundamental units, the Lego bricks, that we're going to use to build almost all the complex lipids we're talking about today.
So, what is a fatty acid? Well, just picture a long chain made of carbon and hydrogen atoms. That's the hydrocarbon part. And then, tacked onto one end, you've got this special chemical group called a carboxyl group. That's it. This simple, repeating pattern is the blueprint for pretty much every fat molecule we're about to meet.
Okay, so fatty acids come in two main flavors. First up, we've got the saturated ones. And that word, saturated, just means the carbon chain is completely full. It's saturated with hydrogen atoms. There are no double bonds anywhere, which gives the molecule this really nice, straight, kind of rigid shape you see here. And then we've got the unsaturated fatty acids. Now, what's so cool here is that you can immediately see the difference, right? Just one double bond between two of those carbons creates this obvious bend or kink in the chain. And because of that kink, it just can't pack as neatly as its straight-laced saturated cousin.
And this is where it all comes together. That tiny difference in shape, it has huge consequences. Saturated fats, since they're straight, can pack together really tightly. That's why they tend to be solid at room temperature, think butter, and have a higher melting point. Unsaturated fats, with their kinks, can't get so close, so they're usually liquids with a lower melting point, like olive oil. See, shape is everything.
All right, so now that we have our building blocks, our fatty acids, what's the first big thing our bodies build with them? Well, primarily, it's our main fuel reserve, triglycerides.
This is the form of fat that most of us are familiar with. Triglycerides are the main ingredient of body fat, stored away in our adipose tissues. They are just incredibly efficient energy storage molecules, packing a ton of power into a really small space. So how do you make one? It's actually a surprisingly simple recipe. You start with this backbone molecule called glycerol. Then you just attach one fatty acid chain, then a second one, and finally a third. The name says it all. Tri for 3 fatty acids, and glyceride for that glycerol backbone. Easy enough.
And this shot illustrates the final molecule perfectly. You can clearly see that central glycerol part with those 3 long fatty acid tails branching off. This right here is the main molecule your body burns for fuel when it needs that long-term energy.
But lipids aren't just about energy. Not at all. Let's switch gears from fuel storage to architecture because they are also the primary builders of our cells. It's time to meet the Glycerophospholipids.
Now, this molecule looks a bit like a triglyceride, but there's a huge plot twist. It's got the glycerol backbone and 2 fatty acid tails, just like before. But instead of that third fatty acid, it has a phosphate group. This phosphate group creates a head that loves water, while the 2 fatty acid tails hate water. This split personality has a fancy scientific name, amphipathic. Having one part that's drawn to water and another part that runs away from it is truly its superpower. This dual nature is what dictates exactly how these molecules behave when you put them in water. So what happens? It's amazing. They spontaneously arrange themselves to hide their water-hating tails and show off their water-loving heads. This forces them to form these incredible structures, like little spheres called micelles, and more importantly, bilayers. And this lipid bilayer, well, that's the fundamental structure of every single cell membrane in your body. It's the wall between the inside and the outside of the cell.
So glycerophospholipids are the workhorses of our cell membranes, but they're not working alone. There's another class of lipids out there with very specific, very critical jobs, the specialists known as sphingolipids. The key difference here is the backbone. Instead of using glycerol, sphingolipids are built on a whole different molecule called sphingosine. It's a subtle change, sure, but it opens up a whole new range of functions, especially when it comes to cells talking to each other. The basic unit is called a ceramide, and from there you can build more complex things. Sphingomyelins, for instance, are vital for insulating our nerve cells, which lets signals travel super fast. Others, called glycolipids, they act like little cellular ID tags, helping your immune system tell the difference between you and not you.
All right, for our final category, we're going to zoom out from the tiny world of cell membranes to something we can actually see and touch. Let's talk about nature's perfect sealant, waxes.
Chemically speaking, waxes are pretty simple. They're just an ester that's formed by linking a long-chain fatty acid to a long-chain alcohol. What you get is this really big, extremely non-polar molecule, which makes it absolutely fantastic at repelling water.
And you see this function everywhere in the real world, right? Think of the beeswax that bees use to build their honeycombs, or that waxy coating on a plant leaf that makes water just bead up and roll right off, or even lanolin from wool that keeps sheep dry. All of them are lipids, just serving as nature's ultimate waterproofing agent. So, we've seen how a simple fatty acid chain can be straight or kinked, and how that one little detail leads to solid fats versus liquid oils. We saw how swapping out one piece for a phosphate group turns an energy molecule into a wall builder. It all comes down to a simple idea. Shape defines function. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other simple patterns are out there, quietly building the incredible complexity we see all around us?